In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Slava Christu. Glory to Jesus Christ.
Glory be forever.
One day a Sunday school teacher was explaining how God created everything, including human beings. And our friend, little Johnny, he seemed especially engrossed when the teacher told the children how Eve was created out of one of Adam's ribs. And so a few days later, Johnny's mother noticed him lying on his bed, looking as though he were ill. "What's wrong, Johnny? Aren't you feeling well?" his mother asked. "I have a pain in my side," Johnny groaned. "I think I'm going to have a wife." Thank you from this side of the room. This side, not so much. Brothers and sisters, perhaps you've had the experience of being in pain. I know that some of you with husbands have a pain 24/7. But perhaps you've experienced real physical pain. And Richard Rohr, Father Richard Rohr, one of my favorite authors, I would say, he writes this about this experience of pain and suffering, which we encounter so dramatically on this Good Friday. He says, "It's amazing to me that the cross or a crucifix became the central Christian logo, when its rather obvious message of inevitable suffering is aggressively disbelieved in most Christian countries or individuals, and even in our churches. In our culture, we bristle and resist suffering. That's because we are clearly all about or into ascent, achievement, accumulation. And instead, the cross has become merely symbolic. A piece of jewelry to hang around our necks, or the rearview mirrors of our cars, or a piece of art we hang on our walls. We made the Jesus story into a mechanical and distant, substitutionary atonement theory, instead of a very personal and intense at-one-ment process, the very reality of love's unfolding. He says we missed out on the positive and redemptive meaning of our own pain and suffering. If you think about it, brothers and sisters, so much of our spiritual life is about what we do with our pain and our suffering. Creation has a pattern of wisdom, and we shouldn't yield or shield ourselves from it, or we literally can lose our souls. We can obey commandments, we can believe doctrines, we can attend church services all our lives, and still lose our souls if we run from the necessary cycle of loss and renewal. Death and resurrection are lived out, remember, at every level of the world, every level of the cosmos. But only one species thinks that it can avoid it, our human species. And I'm afraid that many of us with privilege have been able to become very naive about pain and suffering in the Western world. We simply don't have time for it. However, by trying to handle all suffering through our willpower or denial or medication, we've forgotten something that should be so obvious to us. We don't handle suffering. Suffering handles us in deep and mysterious ways that become the very essence of life, and especially new life. And it seems nothing less than some kind of pain will force us to release our grip on our small explanations and our self-serving illusions. Resurrection will always take care of itself whenever death is trusted. It's the cross, the journey into the necessary night to the darkness of which we must be convinced. And then, brothers and sisters, resurrection then becomes a gift for us. And so in this time of suffering, great suffering in the world, we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to do with our pain? Are we going to blame it on others? Are we going to try and fix it? No one lives on this earth without it. It's the great teacher, although none of us want to admit it. And so if we don't transform our pain, we will transmit it in some form. how can we be sure not to transmit our pain onto others? I think this is the great opportunity of these days. It's really taking stock of who we are, where we're at, and being accountable for that. Brothers and sisters, on this Good Friday, amid the devastating spread of COVID-19, the cross beckons us to what we would call grief work. Holding the mystery of pain, looking right at it, and learning from it. And then, with softened hearts, may God lead us to a new life, a newfound compassion, understanding of ourselves, a newfound understanding of our families and of our communities and of our world. Slava Slavě.